We're hitting our TD picks at a 67% clip this year, which is completely insane. So in this video, we're going to go game by game to break down the best touchdown picks and some long shots for week 9. We're starting with the Bears and Bengals. This is a really interesting one, but obviously the most likely touchdown scorer in this game to me is going to be Jamar Chase. So the Chicago Bears are 30th in points allowed to wide receiver 1. So they are in a situation here where they're giving up a ton of touchdowns as well to lead options. So I think this is going to be a really interesting spot for Jamar Chase. We'll see if Joe Flacco ends up getting out there. That injury is a little bit concerning to the AC joint, the shoulder, but the Bears have allowed the third most TDs per game to the position, so really like that. There is a long shot here that I do like. If Colston Loveland ends up getting in here and getting a decent amount of work, I think that he's at least interesting, even if Cole Kmet comes back. The Bengals have just really struggled to defend tight ends this year, especially in the red zone. And in general, no one's even close to the amount of touchdowns they've allowed to the position. They've allowed 10 touchdowns this year to tight ends only. So Colston Loveland, I think coming off the bye, could be a really nice spot to grab him at some really nice odds. Let's talk through this game because I think Vikings and Lions probably the most appealing from a touchdown perspective. If we're talking through Jahmyr Gibbs, he has to be the most likely to score in this game. He has 6 touchdowns against Minnesota over their last 2 meetings, which is completely insane. Obviously, Detroit as well as the third highest team total of the week, so really like them to score a bunch of points in this one. I really like Amon-Ra in this game as well. Detroit has really struggled to really just defend Minnesota has struggled a little bit to defend wide receivers at times over the top, but against this Flores blitz-heavy defense, St. Brown is still the one that I really like because he's basically the blitz beater for Jared Goff. So I really like St. Brown. Obviously, he's had a lot of success as well against this Flores defense. And I think a lot of it does have to do with his very heavy target share against blitzes and 3 touchdowns against Minnesota's blitzes over the last couple seasons as well. So really like Amon-Ra in this game. If you want someone on the Minnesota side, I think Justin Jefferson is in a really nice spot here. Detroit has been getting absolutely killed by touchdowns to lead wide receivers. So wide receiver ones, they've allowed the third most touchdowns. They're not really giving up a ton of receptions in general to these lead options, but they are giving up touchdowns. So I think that Jefferson is as likely as anyone. Really like all 3 of these. If you want like a huge long shot, Sam Laporta is at least interesting because Minnesota has been getting killed by tight ends as well. And all the things about Jefferson that look pretty good. Detroit's given up a decent amount of touchdowns just to the wide receiver position overall. So Addison is at least interesting as well, but I'm keeping it probably with these 3 at the top, keeping it simple, but a game that should see a ton of points and the touchdowns I think are relatively easy to predict in this one. Since we're always talking about making picks, I'm teaming up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give new DraftKings customers a deal that you won't want to miss for week 9. When you play $5 or more in your first paid Pick 6 entry, you'll get $50 in bonus picks instantly. That's right, play $5, get $50 in bonus picks to keep building your slips and take your shot at big payouts. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, sign up using my promo code HOLKA, and start playing today. If you've been thinking about trying Pick 6, now is the time to get in. Just use my code HOLKA to sign up. And all new DraftKings customers can play $5, get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Let's build some slips. Carolina and Green Bay. Jacobs is obviously the most likely in this game to score. He's still kind of battling through that injury, so I want to take a look at what the practice reports look like there. But they do have the highest team total of the week. So I think Green Bay is going to score a ton of points in this one. The guy that I think is a little bit of like a long shot in this game, though, is McMillan. Green Bay has been really good overall on defense. We know that. But they have struggled a little bit to defend opposing wide receiver 1. So 28th in the NFL in terms of their touchdown rate allowed to those lead wide receivers. So I do think that McMillan is an interesting long shot in this one. Denver and Houston. Yeah, this one was probably one of the tougher ones to do. I will say that I think J.K. Dobbins is going to be my main pick here. I considered Nico Collins probably. At least my model is showing pretty similar odds to score at this point. No Pat Surtain, so that's somewhat intriguing for Nico. But honestly, Denver looked pretty good last week, even without him. Like in terms of defending wide receivers, no one's allowed fewer fantasy points to opposing wide receiver 1s than Denver. So I'm not going to go with Nico in this game. I think Dobbins is the better pick from a touchdown perspective. Atlanta and New England. I think that obviously the most likely is Bijan. I think you can plug him in and feel pretty good about it. But Kayshon Boutte, man, all this guy does is score touchdowns, so I do like that one quite a bit. I consider Drake London, but even if he suits up, this one feels like a little bit of a trap. Christian Gonzalez and the Patriots have absolutely erased opposing wide receiver ones all year. So I think no matter who's under center, I'm not really big on London in this game. Looking at the 49ers and the Giants, CMC most likely in this game. I actually think that Jauan Jennings is somewhat interesting, mostly because the Giants play man coverage the second most in the NFL, and Jennings sees about double the amount of targets historically against those looks, so I think that's interesting. And then as we get some of these players kind of unlocking on pick six later in the week, the one that I'm going to be kind of interested in from a flyer perspective is Wan'Dale Robinson. So San Francisco is third worst at defending slot wide receivers, and they've given up a 9.7 touchdown rate to slot receivers as well. So I think that it's at least interesting as one of those long shots to see what you get for Wan'Dale Robinson, because I think he's in a pretty good spot from a matchup perspective. Colts and Steelers. Yeah, most likely JT. We've been talking about JT all year long. We've even hit on a couple of his 2 touchdown games, which is pretty great because you can get 1.5 on some of those as well. Metcalf is also somewhat interesting. So I would say the long shot in this game is going to be Metcalf for me. People don't realize the Colts are basically a wide receiver cheat code. They've allowed the third most yards and touchdowns to the position. So now we'll see how much run MVS gets. But like if he's going to soften coverage at all through the middle of the field, I think that's kind of interesting. When you have MVS over the top and Metcalf coming over the middle, I think he's set up to punch at least one in this game. Chargers-Titans. I was really tempted to take Quentin Johnston here. Tennessee's allowed a league high 82.4% catch rate to wide receivers, and they've really struggled to defend touchdowns at the position as well. Third most touchdowns over the last few weeks. I'm going to go with Kamani Vidal in this one, though, with all that said. Just dropped 100 yards and a score on Minnesota. It's another really soft matchup against Tennessee this week. They've allowed the third most points per game to the position and the fourth most yards per carry. So give me Kamani Vidal. Saints and Rams. Yeah, I think this one, I guess let's start with the Saints side of this. I'm not on Olave or Shaheed in this one. The Rams have been really good against opposing wide receivers, the 6th best in terms of defending them and also defending touchdowns against them. So I'm not on Olave and Shaheed with Shuck behind center. We could see, I don't know. We don't know what we're going to get from the quarterback position from the Saints yet. So I'm going to be definitely going after the Kyren or Adams side of this. So Kyren and Adams would be my 2 picks in this game. Puka's coming back, all of that. I think obviously he's completely fine. The Saints have been really vulnerable to play action as well, which I think is somewhat interesting. They've given up the 4th highest touchdown rate against those looks. And off of play action, Davante Adams ends up being one of those guys that benefits the most from a target share perspective. So I really like Adams. And I think that Stafford has a chance to throw multiple touchdowns in this game. And then Kyren Williams, with the team total that they have, I think he's still a really interesting one. Probably the most likely to score, but I do like Adams a lot from a matchup perspective in this one. Jacksonville and Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, most likely for me is going to be Ashton Jeanty with this total. I think he's the one that makes the most sense. But also, the Raiders are actually playing a ton of cover 3, second most in the NFL. And the guy that leads the team with the most targets against cover 3 is Brian Thomas Jr. I know a lot of people have kind of been talking about how they're going to get Hunter a little bit more involved, all of those things. But I actually think that it maybe has gone a little bit too far. So BTJ would kind of be my long shot that I would at least consider in this game. They've given up at least a decent touchdown rate to the position as well. But if I'm just picking one, it's going to be Jeanty in this game. Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills. Yeah, Josh Allen for me. I think people don't realize the Chiefs have actually allowed the 2nd most rushing TDs to quarterbacks this year. And anytime these 2 teams play, I would be shocked if Josh Allen doesn't get in the end zone on the ground. I honestly considered James Cook, obviously what he did last week, going completely crazy. We've seen him kind of disappear at times, right? And Kansas City has been basically shutting the door on running backs this year. Pretty elite offense on the other side. They also forced the 3rd fewest rush attempts. So the problem for me is that Cook hasn't been used in the receiving game at all. He only has 1 target over his last 3 games. So I'm a little bit worried about Cook in this game. You could probably make an argument that he's the most likely to score, but I'm going to take Josh Allen in this one. And Seahawks Commanders. This was also an interesting game to break down. I struggled with it a little bit. I would say that from the start, the Commanders have actually struggled a little bit at defending wide receivers, but especially wide receiver ones. There's no real touchdown standout in this game. So give me Jackson Smith-Njigba off the bye, and I think that he's as likely as anyone to score in this game. Last game we're going to talk about, Cardinals and Cowboys. The Cardinals allowed the 7th most running back touchdowns and running back touchdowns per game to the position. So give me Javonte Williams in this one as the most likely. I also really like Bam Knight as it becomes available. The Cowboys have allowed the 3rd most running back TDs this year. And I just, after what he did last week, team high 17 touches in the last game, I should say, coming off the bye. He looked pretty explosive. The Cardinals also, I guess he looked so explosive. The Cardinals cut Michael Carter, and they were able to pick him up on waivers again. But also the matchup is pretty elite. Everyone knows Dallas is bottom 3 at defending the run. So this feels like a smash for Bam Knight and Javonte Williams in this game. I normally keep my anytime TD picks to YouTube Shorts, but if you like this game-by-game breakdown, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll start making these as a weekly video again, but if you want to support me even more, hit subscribe and make sure you use code HOLKA and the link in the description to play your favorite TD picks from this video on DraftKings Pick 6, and I'll see you Sunday for the live stream.